I'm Craig Brailsford, and welcome to another episode of Small Stocks, Big Money. For those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Now, today's show features interviews with the executives of two public companies. First up is Lantern Pharma. Lantern Pharma is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company redefining oncology drug development through artificial intelligence. Its proprietary radar platform leverages more than 200 billion oncology-specific data points to rapidly identify drug candidates, optimize patient targeting, and de-risk clinical trials, cutting early development time and cost by up to 70% and 80% respectively. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Up next is Enlivex Therapeutics. Enlivex is a clinical stage macrophage reprogramming immunotherapy company developing Allocetra, a universal off-the-shelf cell therapy designed to reprogram macrophages, which are primary immune cells, into their homeostatic state. Osteoarthritis and many other diseases reprogram macrophages out of their homeostatic state. These non-homeostatic macrophages contribute significantly to the severity of the respective diseases. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Now, let's move on to our quote of the week. It comes from the book, Small Stocks, Big Money. The single most important way we attempt to manage risk in any environment is by seeking to buy stocks very cheaply. We never want to pay too much. This quote comes from Bill Hench of Royce Opportunity Funds, and it is featured in Chapter 3 of Small Stocks, Big Money, a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon today for just $18. Now let's get started with our first interview today with Lantern Pharma.
Hi, I'm Dave Gentry, Small Stocks, Big Money. I have with me today Panna Sharma, a good friend and the CEO of Lantern Pharma. Panna, thanks for being with us today.
Dave, always great to be here. Thanks for having me down.
Thanks for coming. Radar is changing the landscape of how we find drugs, develop drugs, repurpose drugs. Your AI platform has 200 plus oncology-focused data points, 200 machine learning algorithms. You have 3 clinical trials in process, 3 different drugs, and you have 11 FDA-designated programs. And then you started this company, I believe this was where you came into CEOs roughly 5 years ago.
Yeah, at the end of 2018, 2019.
So give us an overview of the technology of the platform and what you're most excited about.
I mean, we could not have made this progress, and I was just talking to some of our board members about this, without the extensive use of AI, and certainly not with the kind of burn rate that we have, which is fairly de minimis compared to other biotechs. We are a data-driven company, and really that data-driven idea has morphed into really being an AI-first company. But our focus is AI for good, and our AI for good is to create cancer medicines. And so we use data and AI to understand and develop molecules, but also to understand how a molecule can be used best. Which cancer will it work best in? Where do we have a propensity of evidence? Where can we de-risk it? Where is it going to work better than other drugs? You always hear about, wow, this drug worked, but then it never gets through a trial. It's not because it's a bad molecule, but it was poorly understood. Because the standard of care is always changing, right? And just because something works doesn't mean it's going to work enough to get to an approval. Just because something works in lab doesn't mean it's going to work in the real world setting. Just because something works by itself doesn't mean it's going to work in a patient who's now third line and may or may not have those biomarkers or mutations available to target. The real world is chaos, right? And so that's what, when we accumulate data, we can think through, does the beauty of the science that we have, does it translate into the chaos of cancer biology? Does it translate into things that'll be meaningful, durable impacts? And so far for our drugs, we've been very fortunate that we actually have some really good responses.
So you have a phase 2 asset for never smokers lung cancer, which is a $4 billion market opportunity. You've had some data. Talk to us about that program and what the challenges are and what the endpoints are.
Yeah. I think that initially the challenge often was to get the data that shows stunningly that people who don't smoke actually have a different disease when they get lung cancer. The molecular profile, totally different. The mutational overlap is no overlap. People who are smokers have different sets of mutations. People who are never smokers have different sets, quiet mutations almost. So they have a very low tumor mutation burden. And so but they manifest themselves in the lining of the lungs as adenocarcinoma in the lungs. So they're both classified as a non-small cell lung cancer, but they're treated the same. Unfortunately, never smokers really don't have any approved therapies targeting never smokers. Now, we do know that never smokers tend to have a preponderance of kinase mutations. So these kinase mutations are totally different than what a typical smoker has. And so that's how our drug works. And we found that through AI. There was some data out there, but AI and molecular modeling helped us to understand that the drug, that small molecule P300, actually bound to those very specific kinase receptors. And those kinase receptors are available to us in these never smokers. So we target the biology that's specific to that patient group. And when we went into the trials, it worked out. All these different types of kinase mutations, it's the only pan-kinase modulator that's in
So
clinical
this is
trials.
what we mean by precision
Yes.
oncology,
Yeah.
right? Because you're able to look at the signature biomarkers and target those for which the drug will work.
And also have predictions about it. I mean, we can argue about predictions all day long. Eventually, you'll get into a trial. But we've had, like you said, we've had a complete response in the target lesions of one of our patients. It was a 71-year-old male who failed 4 prior lines of therapy, including Keytruda, including chemo doublet, including Tagrisso, which is a great drug, osimertinib. Failed those, and his response was over 2 years. So it's not just like
What are the next steps in the clinical trial?
we'll have some data coming out. That'll be an extension of all the patients in the US, plus the first group of patients in Japan and Taiwan. And so I'm hoping that this trend will continue. In the first group of patients, we had an 86% clinical benefit rate, which is pretty phenomenal. And that's what gave us the hope that, hey, let's keep spending, let's keep pushing this. And I think if we get similar type of numbers in the second readout, that's going to pave a path for a lot of partnerships with big pharma. It's also going to potentially pave the path for an accelerated type approval with the FDA.
Is it your intention to partner then with this, as you said, with the phase 2 data, or take it yourself if necessary?
We know our space. We're innovators. We like to create stuff. We like to prove that it works. We like to put and then sell it off to a larger biotech or a larger pharma and allow them to do what they do best, which is manage global phase 3 trials, get it into insurance companies' hands, get it reimbursed for, et cetera. But, we think, obviously, we're going to make projections, and I think this drug could easily be in the $4 to $5 billion range annual sales.
Right.
And this is in a disease where there's not many great options.
Let's talk about your second drug in clinical trials. Just completed a phase 1. It's a small molecule synthetic that targets the DNA damage repair deficiencies with an application towards pancreatic cancer, bladder cancer, CNS. Talk to us about this program.
Yeah, this is a very exciting one. About 25% of all cancers have some kind of DNA repair deficiency. And our drug, LP-184, is the one you're mentioning. It has 4 orphan indications in
And it's
pancreatic.
been fast-tracked as well, correct?
And fast-tracked in GBM and also in triple-negative breast cancer. And again, this drug is first in human, totally advanced with AI. And we just finished a phase 1 trial of 63 patients. So it's a fairly large trial. And it's a very potent drug. So we started at a very, very low dose. So to work our way to the maximum tolerated dose and then do dose finding. So we feel like we've got a really robust phase 2 recommendation, and I think we'll achieve that. We've got 2 phase 2s lined up, maybe 3 now actually, that are cleared from the FDA. So this is a blockbuster drug, 10, 12, 15 billion in potential sales annually. And it's because it really destroys a wide range of tumors, but only if that tumor has a DNA repair deficiency, which again, about 25% of tumors do, or the cancer overexpresses a certain RNA sequence called PTGR1. And if that's overexpressed, downstream PTGR1 is overexpressed as an enzyme. And our drug binds to this enzyme inside of the cancer cell. So the beauty of this drug, again, going back to your precision oncology, it's designed to go inside the cancer cell, but not activate until it binds with this enzyme PTGR1. PTGR1 doesn't really exist outside of the cancer cell. So its off-target
The
effects are
applications
minimized.
are breast cancer, triple negative breast cancer, bladder cancer, and CNS.
Pancreatic cancer,
And
CNS.
fast tracked on that, fast tracked on that, a $10 billion market. Let's go to your third drug in clinical trials. This is a drug for blood cancers. Tell me about it.
So this drug, we didn't even have when we went public. So we started brainstorming this drug. This is the first in human, brand new molecule, never was worked on. But we really started working on it partly because of 184. So it's kind of a sister drug to 184. It's called 284. And 284 does the same thing that 184 does. It destroys cancer cells, but this destroys blood cancer cells because 184 wasn't working in blood cancer. And so they gave us that moment of like, well, why does it not? And so as we explored that, we said, let's use the mechanism of 184, but see what we can do in different cancers where 184 doesn't work. And that's the birth of 284. 284 has 2 orphan indications, one in mantle cell lymphoma, one in high-grade B-cell lymphomas. It also actually works remarkably well in certain sarcomas, which probably do the same reason, which is the targets B cells. It's a B cell depleter. If there's a CD19 or CD20 positive B cell, this drug destroys it. And those are indicated in a lot of different B cell cancers. And so we had a great, complete metabolic response in a patient, 2 doses. And so that gives us a real clarity of signal that this drug is doing something. This is a patient who was very advanced. They had failed 3 prior lines of therapy, state-of-the-art therapies, a bispecific antibody. They had a stem cell transplant, and they also had a CAR T therapy. So top-line therapies for lymphomas, state-of-the-art therapies. And so where there was a lot of debate internally about whether this patient would even respond, given that they hadn't responded all that well historically. And so we were just amazed and surprised. And so we're pretty hopeful. That clearly shows that the mechanism that we modeled using our AI platform and the data that we discovered in the de-risking that we did is valid. So that to us, the AI platform is working. And that's the one, and more importantly, we're actually impacting this patient's life. And so to us, that's what AI for good is about.
So the results have been amazing. And in your $48 million market cap today, there are analysts out there saying your stock should be $25. What's the disconnect?
I think the disconnect is about $22. So, biotech's been through a very difficult time. Not just our company, all companies. And so it's great not to be trading at cash. But the thing is, the market opportunity is pretty significant. Any one of our molecules could be licensed, partnered, even co-developed. It would be worth several times our market cap. So I think as we continue to put out good data from our trials and we continue to advance the platform, we're doing both at the same time. And so we have like 2 big engines. And oftentimes the bigger disconnect is you have the tech guys who don't understand trials and biotech and are scared of it. And you have biotech guys who don't really understand the AI engine and say, well, we don't understand how you're doing all this. We don't believe you. How can you do 3 trials? How can you come up with these 3 drugs and you're only spending $4.5 million? So the disconnect is that you have an entrenched way of thinking from the biotech world, and you have a uneasiness in the tech world because we're actually trying to change lives and outcomes and not just do intellectual masturbation about, LLMs and flips and parameters. That's all great because we use that and that's how we do all this great work. But just doing that doesn't make you a genius. It doesn't make you change lives. You got to actually change a life. And so I think partly the disconnect is that, one, biotech has been challenged and we're coming out of that. Second, there's a certain element of disbelief in the biotech community that how can this small company do all this stuff? And it takes our company $100 million a quarter and we're belly up. And I think that's just something that needs to get worked through. But I think that's in those disconnects, that's where opportunity is.
Right. Well, I've watched you grow the company the last 5 years and watch you get these 3 drugs into clinical trials. And I've watched you manage your cash quite well. I think you've raised well over $100 million, right?
Yeah, publicly and private. Publicly north of 97, about 97.
Fairly substantial VC funds backed this, so they saw what you saw, right?
Yeah.
And what you see today.
And this is just the beginning. I mean, we don't even talk a lot about all the exciting new developments that we have. We're really focused now on our trials and getting these initial drugs out to larger pharma customers, partners. And then also we have a pretty big initiative that we're working on with the AI platform that will that this will come out this fall, which will be really breakthrough. We're taking a page out of the kind of the DeepSeek playbook. And so that'll be quite, I think, eye-opening for the industry.
That's exciting. Wow. I want to thank you for coming into the studio today and sharing your thinking and your story with us. It's exciting.
It is. Thanks, Dan. Yeah.
Now, to get more information on Lantern Pharma, visit LTRN.info. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Lantern Pharma. Now let's move on to our next interview today with Enlivex Therapeutics. Hello, today we have with us Oren Hershkowitz, the CEO of Enlivex Therapeutics, trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker ENLV. Oren, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Craig. Great being here again.
Oren, tens of millions of Americans suffer from osteoarthritis with years of knee pain and debilitation, and in many cases, they end up with knee replacement surgery. Do you believe that Enlivex can change their lives and offer a therapy that actually works?
Well, based on our recent phase 2A trial, I believe we can actually do that. We discussed the data with world-leading experts in osteoarthritis, and they are also excited about the results we were seeing. In age above 60, what we call age-related idiopathic osteoarthritis, we're seeing significant responses, clinical and meaningful outcomes, and therefore we are very, very excited, and hopefully we can get this to those patients out there. Yes.
All right, so how does it actually work?
Well, it's simple. We're talking about 3 injections of our drug Allocetra directly into the knee every 2 weeks. So overall 1 month, and that's it.
Okay, Oren, I want to keep talking about this because it does seem so compelling. Give me more of the key highlights and tell me what makes these results so important.
Right. So, first of all, it's a phase 2A study. Just in explaining the design, we're talking about randomized, controlled, double-blind study. Patients receiving Allocetra drug versus a placebo control group, right? Moderate to severe knee osteoarthritis patient, and we gave him Allocetra and then measured pain and function at 3 months. Now, the data in this age-related group was really substantial. We're talking about 50% pain reduction in the Allocetra group, 72% more effect than we saw in the placebo group, 109% improvement over placebo in function, right? So all of this are actually phase 3 endpoints, legitimate, the endpoints that FDA expects, and we're seeing already statistically significant results and clinically meaningful results in that population. That makes us, at this stage, very, very excited about the next steps.
Thanks for that, Oren. I want to move to the primary osteoarthritis patients where the data showed particularly strong results, including statistically significant reductions in pain and improvements in function. Tell us about that subgroup, why it's so important, and what would this mean for phase 3 development?
That's an excellent question. So it's really important for 2 reasons. First of all, we're talking about the substantial population of osteoarthritis. Idiopathic primary osteoarthritis above the age of 60 represent more than 50% of the total market. It's actually also more than 50% of the study population, right? Now, think about it. One of the main drivers for the market growth in osteoarthritis is the fact that we're aging. And this is an mostly age-related wear and tear disease with low-grade inflammation. So it's the driving force, one of the major driving forces for the growth of this market. And this is the population that we are targeting. That's why it makes it so important and so significant from a clinician perspective.
And I think it needs to be underlined that osteoarthritis, Oren, is a disease with very few effective treatment options beyond painkillers and surgery. Now, just how big of an unmet need are you addressing? And again, tell us, how does Allocetra potentially reshape the treatment landscape?
Right. So yes, it's true. The fact that it's such a common life-debilitating condition, it actually defined a serious condition by the FDA, right? So we're talking about a huge market. Estimated numbers of 32 million adults in the U.S. suffering from osteoarthritis, 14 million with knee osteoarthritis just in the U.S., right? And we don't have effective treatments. We just don't. We have painkillers. Nothing really showed substantial results. as we're starting seeing now with Allocetra, right? In this age group of 60 and above, which makes this really revolutionary from that perspective. The market is huge, estimated to be 7 billion today, to grow to about 15 billion in 2030. And, and we're providing them with a potentially life-changing therapy.
Oren, one of the things that has impressed me about Allocetra is how simple and cost-effective the whole process can be. You got an estimated cost of goods of about $450 for a full treatment cycle. Now, how would that give Enlivex a competitive edge versus other cell or biologic therapies?
Well, that's a great question, Craig. Actually, when people think about cell therapy, they think about very sophisticated and very expensive drugs. This is entirely not the case. Allocetra is an off-the-shelf cell therapy, a very, very effective manufacturing treatment, very simple, very simple. At the end of the day, results in the fact that we are very competitive from pricing perspective. Our estimation is about $450 average for treatment for osteoarthritis patients. So it's really nothing like, other cell therapies out there. It's very competitive to what's currently being used in osteoarthritis, although it's not very effective.
Turning now to the leaders of your great team, Oren, you have great experience, including a $590 million biotech exit and successful partnerships with big pharma names such as Pfizer. How is your experience shaping your strategy for Enlivex?
Okay, so this is actually the second round of co-founder and Shai Novik and myself. We actually, in the previous company, we developed a long-acting growth hormone. The company was eventually acquired by a U.S. public company for $590 million acquisition. And we also did a co-development and licensing agreement with Pfizer over that leading asset. So I've worked with Pfizer for 5 years to do the late-stage clinical development. We know what big pharma are looking for. We did that deal actually following a successful phase 2 clinical data, which is exactly the point we are now. So I think we are very experienced in both the drug development side, but also from the business side, and that's obviously an advantage.
Final question, Oren. What is the essential value proposition? Why should investors take an interest in Enlivex right now?
Okay, so first of all, we're still, a microcap company with meaningful clinical data, right? At a huge unmet medical condition, huge market. Seasoned management, as we talked about, really novel modality, cost of goods is low. So you had all of those components, which make this a very, very appealing, option for investors.
Oren, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure again.
Now, to get more information on Enlivex Therapeutics, visit ENLVinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free, and you can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies like Enlivex. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small-cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel. Also, go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly our client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can order Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon for $18. Now, let's recap the companies featured today. First, you met Lantern Pharma Inc., LTRN on the NASDAQ. Lantern Pharma is a clinical-stage biopharmaceutical company redefining oncology drug development through artificial intelligence. Its proprietary RADAR platform leverages more than 200 billion oncology-specific data points to rapidly identify drug candidates, optimize patient targeting, and de-risk clinical trials, cutting early development time and cost by up to 70% and 80% respectively. Learn more at www.ltrn.info. Then you met Enlivex Therapeutics Incorporated, ENLV, on the NASDAQ. Enlivex is a clinical-stage macrophage reprogramming immunotherapy company developing Allocetra, a universal off-the-shelf cell therapy designed to reprogram macrophages, which are primary immune cells, into their homeostatic state. Osteoarthritis and many other diseases reprogram macrophages out of their homeostatic state. These non-homeostatic macrophages contribute significantly to the severity of the respective diseases. Learn more at www.enlvinfo.com. Don't forget to check out our stocks page. It is the biggest small-cap stock portal in the industry. It has every company listed on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange with a market cap of $2 billion and less. And it's categorized by industry. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small-cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel, and be sure to sign up for our weekly newsletter and learn about a lot of small-cap companies. Also, go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly our client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, if you have any questions about any of our public companies featured on today's show, call us at 1-800-RedChip or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile of asset classes. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies. So please, always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thanks for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new, exciting, emerging growth companies.